I think we live in anxious times,
Yeah.
and I think our culture is anxiety driven, and the church is often also a source of increasing anxiety. And I think of the story of Mary and Martha, where Martha comes to Jesus and says, "Don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." And Jesus says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried, you are anxious about many things. Only one thing is needed." Like Martha, we're busy working in the kitchen, we're working in ministry on a daily basis. And when it causes anxiety, then I think we get into trouble with ourselves, and gets in the way of our ministry and leadership. And some of us find our identity in that work, and we become workaholics. I think one of the signs of burnout is when we begin to resent the people we were called to serve. And so taking care of ourselves frees us up to be able to serve others with freedom and joy. One way to look at caring for oneself is the metaphor of an ambulance driver. And if we don't take care of the ambulance, there'll be no opportunity or no way of taking people to the hospital. So it's really important then to take care of ourselves in order for us to be available to others and to serve others with freedom and joy. I don't think Jesus is saying, well, don't work too hard. But it is this balance between working hard, not being driven by anxiety, and also taking time out to be with Christ and with others in a covenant community and in this spiritual place where we can really hear and discern God's voice. So I like to say that we develop a, a big ear to listen to God and a clear eye to discern opportunities and challenges. So we become like discerning sociologists who have our ear tuned into what God has, and so that we can begin to dare to see the world as God sees it, and begin to see and hear and listen for how God might be dreaming God's dream in us and through our congregation, so that we can be fruitful and effective in a lost world. Jesus formed a community in order to fulfill his mission, and he practiced these disciplines with his closest friends. And I think that's a good model for us. Practicing the disciplines as a means of grace, not for the sake of doing the disciplines, but as a way of practicing the spiritual disciplines with no strings attached. So, not to pray so that God would do something, or pray that with some kind of strings attached, but just to enjoy that relationship, enjoy the intimacy. Although, when being alone with God, it may bring up issues that are uncomfortable, that bring discomfort. And that's the opportunity then for spiritual transformation. And I think that as Pentecostals, we desire the spiritual empowerment for service. But I'm also convinced that I need a characterological filling for the Spirit to bring gentleness and joy and love and peace and hope that comes out of my relationship with Christ and with others. Dallas Willard says we want to follow Jesus into the marketplace of ministry and witness miracles, and who does not want to be part of that? But to do that, he says, we must also follow Jesus to the desert and to the mountaintop, to experience this intimacy with Christ in order then to equip us for service and ministry. I think many pastors are finding that working in teams is really important. And that working in teams also means that there will be conflict, that there will be differences. And it's not about resolving our differences, because we may never fully resolve our differences, but we learn to manage them, and we learn to actually invite. I think there's a difference between healthy conflict and dysfunctional conflict. No one wants to be involved with dysfunctional conflict. It's really devastating to individuals and relationships. But to invite healthy differences, to actually promote that, find out what different perspectives are, is really important for different gifts and different people to be at the table in order to discern what is God doing in this 21st century with the challenges that are before us. So I'm really optimistic about that. I'm optimistic about the church in the 21st century with the diverse gifts at the table. The challenges are really that are before us are met by claiming and going more deeply into kingdom values. I mean, I think our culture is really looking for people who have the capacity to love enemies and to forgive 70 times 7 and to go the extra mile. There's the passage in Matthew 25 is pretty daunting for me, where Jesus said, you did all these things in my name, but depart from me, because I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. You did all these things, but I don't know who you are. And so we need each other. We need to form community. We need to encourage one another, to challenge one another, to stay involved with the ministry that Christ has given to us. The world needs the church. The world needs pastors. And so I'm optimistic about that. And I have great hope because of the students that are in the classroom, both undergraduate and graduate. There are people who really have a passion, are committed to God, are committed to each other. And it just warms my heart to see how God is still calling people who care for this world, who really want to get out there and do something for the kingdom of God.